The weight of Samir's life had calcified into a single, dense point behind his sternum. It was a physical thing, this feeling, a stone of failed ambitions and eroded dreams. At 44, he sat on the edge of his worn sofa, the silence of his small apartment pressing in on him. The business plan, the novel, the travel, all were ghosts now, flickering in the periphery of his memory before dissolving into the gray monotony of his present. The thought, when it came, was not a scream, but a sigh. A simple, elegant solution to the complex, ugly problem of being himself. There was no point. The next morning, he dressed with a strange, detached precision. He chose a shirt he'd once worn to a job interview he'd been certain he'd ace. He left a note, a simple, "I'm sorry," propped against the empty coffee maker. His destination was the Abraj Tower, a sleek needle of glass and steel piercing the city's smoggy sky. From its public observatory, a life could end with a kind of brutal finality. The city streets were a jarring cacophony of life. Horns blared, vendors shouted, and the sun glared off windshields. Samir moved through it all like a ghost, the world muffled and distant. Then a scent cut through the haze. Warm, buttery, fragrant with rosewater and toasted pistachios. A taif. He stopped. The smell was a key, unlocking a vault of memory long sealed. His mother, her hands dusted with flour, humming as she folded the golden pancakes, filling his small, upturned face with the first perfect bite. The warmth of her kitchen, the sound of her laughter. The memory was so vivid it was a physical blow. A small, unassuming kiosk, painted a faded blue, was the source. Without conscious thought, he deviated from his path. He bought one, the warm paper sleeve a comfort in his hand. He sank onto a small wrought iron bench beside the kiosk, its green paint chipped and weathered. He wasn't delaying the inevitable, he told himself. He was just having a taste of a better time, one last time.
The first bite was a time machine. It was his 10th birthday, it was graduating university, it was his mother's proud smile. He was so lost in the taste, he didn't notice the old man sit down beside him until he spoke. "The best in the city," the man said, his voice a pleasant rumble. "My wife, she used to say a bad day could be saved with the right dessert." Samir merely nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The man, whose name was Elias, didn't seem to mind. He kept talking, not to Samir, but to the air between them. "I lost her 2 years ago. Cancer. Lost the will to run my carpentry shop, lost everything for a while. I sat on a bench much like this one, right where you are, thinking the same dark thoughts I see in your eyes." Samir froze, the atayef halfway to his mouth. Elias smiled, a network of wrinkles spreading from his eyes. "An old man knows the look. I was going to walk into the sea. But then I ate something sweet, and I thought, Elias, you have built 100 tables and chairs. Can you not build one more day? So I did, then another. The shop is still there. It is quieter now, but the smell of cedar, it still brings me peace." He patted Samir's knee, stood up with a soft grunt, and ambled away, leaving behind the ghost of his story. Samir sat, stunned. The stone in his chest felt a fraction lighter. A young woman in chef's whites, her face smudged with flour, replaced Elias. "Rough morning," she muttered, more to herself than to Samir. "My restaurant, we got our first brutal review. Called my signature dish uninspired. Felt like the world was ending." She took a long drag. "My grandfather, he was a fisherman. He used to say, 'Lila, the sea doesn't give you a catch every day. Some days it just gives you water. You still have to sail.' So I guess I'm sailing back to the kitchen. Maybe that critic just has bad taste." She gave Samir a wry, conspiratorial smile before striding off. The final visitor was a girl no older than 8, clutching a wilting sunflower. She sat primly on the bench, swinging her legs. "You look sad,"
she stated, with the brutal honesty of a child. Samir found his voice, hoarse from disuse. "A little." "I was sad today," she announced. "My hamster, Pickles, died. I cried so much my tummy hurt. My dad said Pickles had the best life a hamster could have because I loved him. Then we buried him in the garden and planted this." She waved the sunflower. "Dad said now Pickles is helping something beautiful grow. So it's a happy sad." She hopped off the bench. "Bye, mister. I hope you get a sunflower." She skipped away, leaving Samir alone with the crumbs of his atayef and the rubble of his resolve. He looked at his hands. They were the hands of a man who had tried and failed. But they were also the hands his mother had held. They were hands that could still feel the warmth of a paper sleeve. Elias had built days into a life. Lila was sailing into a storm. A little girl was finding beauty in decay. He had been measuring his life by the grand, unfinished projects, the shattered dreams. He had not considered the value of a single, perfectly made atayef. He had not considered the courage in building one more day, in sailing on, in planting a sunflower in the soil of grief. The monumental weight of ending his life felt abstract now, foolish even, compared to the simple, concrete reality of the people who had shared his bench. They were a chorus of resilience, their stories a quiet, powerful rebellion against the silence he had planned for himself. Samir stood up. The stone in his chest was still there, but it was no longer an anchor. It was a reminder of the weight he could learn to carry. He looked at the faded blue kiosk, no longer just a vendor of sweets, but a silent guardian of 1,000 stories, a beacon for the lost and the healing. He muttered to himself, the words a promise, a new name for this turning point in his city, the beautiful sweets kiosk. He turned and walked home, the scent of rosewater and hope lingering on his clothes.